Hello and welcome to Lore of the Storm, the series that looks into the lore behind your favourite heroes in Heroes of the Storm. And don't you dare call them champions for word variety. Last time, we looked at the Lord of Sin and walking meme, Asmodunk. This time, we'll be taking a look at one of the more recent heroes, sticking with the Diablo universe, the cryptic necromancer, Zul. In most fantasy settings, necromancers are men or women of evil, perverse individuals that raise rotted corpses and control them like marionettes. The necromancers of the Diablo universe are different. While they are able to raise the dead and make use of other necromantic powers, they do so not to commit evil, but to preserve balance. The title Necromancer is not actually used by the group themselves. It is a name given by those that do not understand or fear them. Those that fear the priests of Rathma do so with good reason. They are the only mortals that possess the power of necromancy. The only other beings with the ability to wield this potent form of magic are demons. It is because of the cult's decision to completely isolate itself that outsiders remain unaware that the priests do not in fact seek to commit evil. The history of the Order stretches far back in time to the birth of one of the first generation Nephilim, Rathma. Looking to escape the war between angels and demons known as the Eternal Conflict, Inarius and Lilith stole away the artifact that the conflict revolved around, the World Stone, and used it to create Sanctuary. Upon this peaceful world, angel and demon interbred, giving birth to the Nephilim. The first generation of these beings were referred to as the Ancients. One of the sons of Lilith and Inarius was Rathma, originally called Linarian. He is often depicted by the priests as a giant serpent. Whether this is how Rathma looked, what he became, or a myth is unknown. Since Nephilim are the ancestors of humanity, it is often assumed that the Ancients bared some resemblance to their descendants. Rathma was a solitary, contemplative individual who sought solace within the deep recesses of the world. In his isolation, Rathma became fascinated by the cycle of life and death. Through this, he gained a deep appreciation for the balance between the two forces. In time, the angels and demons came to fear the Nephilim as their children's power grew and surpassed their own. Some believed that their children should be purged, fearing that their old allies would discover them and destroy them for abandoning the war and committing the blasphemy of interbreeding. Those that would not follow the command of Inarius were destroyed, which prompted Lilith to kill those that sought to slay her children. The Purge ended with Lilith being sent into exile, and Inarius attuning the World Stone so that future generations of Nephilim would slowly lose their powers and long lifespans, becoming human. To escape from Inarius, Rathma feigned his own death, retreating to a mysterious netherrealm. This realm was the home of Trag'Oul, a celestial dragon-like creature that had appeared just for a moment on Sanctuary during the Purge, for Rathma to discover his existence. Trag'Oul, a being of mysterious origin, was the guardian of Sanctuary, who sought to maintain the balance of the world and protect it from outside angelic and demonic influence. Trag'Oul took Rathma on as his apprentice, and the Ancient gained an even more in-depth understanding of balance, the World Stone, and how Sanctuary was created. Rathma and Trag'Oul remained silent until an event known as the Sin War. Having discovered Sanctuary, the prime evils, Mephisto, Diablo and Baal, could sense the potential of humanity. They could feel their dormant Nephilim power, and believed that this could be used to tip the scales of the eternal conflict in their favour. Through deception, they created the Triune, a religion that seemed to celebrate love, determination, and creation. Its seemingly peaceful message resonated with humanity, who flocked to join. Only the highest-ranking members of the Triune knew the truth of the religion's insidious purpose, and would lure initiates in to be sacrificed and tortured for the amusement of their masters. Since the mage clans, who ruled Sanctuary's greatest province, Kejitstan at this time, did not take action, believing the Triune to be a passing fancy, Inarius did. The lone angel had been wandering in seclusion since the butchering of his brethren at the hands of his lover, and over time had taken a shine to humanity. Upon discovering the Triune, Inarius immediately sensed the prime evil's involvement. To counteract the Triune, Inarius established his own religion, appearing before humanity as a prophet and preaching his teachings of cooperation, tolerance, and unity from his Cathedral of Light. Soon, both the Triune and the Cathedral of Light laid claim to most of the eastern lands of Sanctuary. The Sin War did not begin with violence. The two religions competed to win the hearts, minds, and devoted loyalty of the people of Sanctuary. In the midst of this contest for power, another group formed, led by a man named Odyssean, accompanied by his brother Mendeln. The two brothers originated from the village of Serum. They were left to tend their father's farm after a plague tore through the village. Mendeln, while slight when compared to his brother, was an intimidating individual, his black eyes making people's blood run cold, all except for his good friend Achilles and Odyssean. The farming life was not for Mendeln, and in between tending fields he would seek out tomes and scrolls, just for the thrill of study. One day, Achilles discovered a strange stone object on the outskirts of the village, and decided to show it to his friend. Mendeln ventured to touch the stone, and an odd feeling of agelessness washed over him. Achilles saw quite a different scene, as if his friend had died, motionless and not breathing. When Mendeln's consciousness returned, the two friends covered the stone and left it behind. Since that day, Mendeln was a changed man, experiencing visions of the past. He'd black out and awaken covered in dirt, and later began to see the spirits of the dead as he accompanied Odyssean, whose Nephilim power had been awakened. This had been performed by a returned Lilith, in an attempt to use Odyssean to defeat her ex-lover. She hid her identity, but would later be discovered and defeated. All those that travelled with Odyssean saw their powers evolve, and became known as the Edarim, or those who have seen. In the town of Partha, Mendeln found himself inexplicably drawn to the town's ancient graveyard. Here, he caught a glimpse of Rathma, and within the graveyard's presence, a new knowledge of the spirit realm and its ancient magic entered Mendeln's mind. This new knowledge was put to use shortly after, when Mendeln used a spell to dispatch the undead leader of a group of Morlu. Later in his travels, Mendeln met with Rathma and Trag'Oul. Sensing that Mendeln had a profound connection with the balance of Sanctuary, Rathma took him on as his student. Watched over by Rathma and Trag'Oul, Mendeln became the first human necromancer. Mendeln used his powers to aid his brother throughout the Sin War. This ended with both the high heavens and burning hells getting involved in a bloody conflict, which was ended by Odyssean using his incredible Nephilim power to defeat both the angels and demons and restore Sanctuary to mankind, sacrificing his life in the process. After witnessing Odyssean's selfless sacrifice to preserve his race, the Angiras Council, first among the angels, decided not to destroy Sanctuary, a subject they had been pondering for some time to remove the possible threat of humanity from the eternal conflict. The angel Tyrael's vote decided the outcome. As part of this decision, the angels used their power to clear humanity's memory of the Sin War, and both angel and demon agreed to leave the world alone. However, thanks to interference from Trag'Oul, Mendeln was the only member of the Edarim to maintain his memory of the war. Respecting his student for his dedication to the balance and his remarkable deeds during the Sin War, Trag'Oul renamed him Kalen. This meant teacher in the Guardian's language. As well as this, Trag'Oul and Rathma sent their student on a mission. Kalen would travel to the eastern jungles of Kyrgyzstan and take on several apprentices, and with this, the cult of Rathma was born. Over time, the order would grow. The priests built a huge underground city, hiding them away from other mage factions. As a result, they would remain truly independent, their isolation allowing them to explore their very unique style of magic. Through years of researching Rathma's teachings and experimentation, each priest of the cult gained a deep appreciation for the balance between life and death, and as a result, were able to blur the lines between the two. The priests of Rathma have come to understand where each of them sit in what they call the Great Cycle of Being, a cycle they believe that if thrown into imbalance and not nurtured, could spell catastrophe for Sanctuary. The closest entity the priests have for a deity is the mighty Trag'Oul. They are now led by Death Speaker Jurden and consist of approximately 150 members. Due to their isolation and their connection with the balance of Sanctuary, the priests of Rathma are near incorruptible. Priests follow their own path, performing the tasks they believe will maintain the balance. Sometimes this brings them into conflict with the forces of good, but more often, evil. The Order will only indulge in spell work that does not lead to the user becoming corrupted, and as a result, each member of the cult is above temptation. Diablo III's John Dar is a good example of a necromancer that found himself in combat with the forces of good. Having left the Templar Order, he joined the Coven in service of Magda, who in turn served the lesser evil Belial. While on the face of it John Dar had turned evil, he in fact rebelled against the Templar Order, which despite seeming to be a holy order, was in fact deeply corrupt. Maybe John Dar's allying with Magda was his way of trying to restore balance after his involvement with the Templar. Given their connection to the balance, necromancers do not fear death, as ultimately it is just another necessity of life, and what needs to happen for balance to be maintained. Why should a necromancer fear death? After all, they believe that when they die, their spirit passes to another plane of existence, where they continue their work to maintain balance. The only clear enemies the priesthood have are those that seek to use humanity as their pawns. Their aim is to rid Sanctuary of all otherworldly intervention, whether it be demonic or angelic. Though due to the Burning Hell's insistence to corrupt mankind, they often find themselves teaming with the side of Order to balance out the tussle between Order and Chaos. One such necromancer to side with the force of Order was Zul, shortly after the Darkening of Tristram. The original Diablo saw the son of King Leoric, Aiden, save the town of Tristram from Diablo. The Lord of Terror had been imprisoned in a soulstone many years before this by an order of mages called the Horodrim. However, Diablo had begun breaking free from his confines and demons were flocking to aid their master. Aiden fought his way down to the lowest level of Tristram Cathedral, where standing before him was the Lord of Terror himself. After a long battle, Aiden was triumphant. Standing over Diablo's body, the hero saw it morph before his eyes, leaving behind the dead body of his brother, Albrecht. Realizing he had not truly defeated Diablo and that it was only a matter of time before the Lord of Terror managed to begin his escape again, Aiden made a bold decision. Picking up the Soulstone, Aiden thrust it into his forehead, hoping that his strength of will would be enough to keep Diablo in check. It wasn't. Not long after this, Diablo began to claim Aiden's body for his own. Aiden set out on a long journey to the east. Always east. And this is where the events of Diablo II begin. Wherever Aiden travelled, destruction was left in his wake. Tristram was the first to burn, worrying news that attracted heroes from all over the land to investigate. One such hero was a gaunt man, his skin pale from many years spent studying closeted away from the sun. As he travelled the land toward Tristram, he was the recipient of many a strange look and shunned by those that did not understand him. The novice necromancer Zul met with other heroes, a barbarian, sorceress, paladin and druid to name a few, and pursued Aiden, fighting through the demons and destruction left in his wake. As his arrival brought such strife, Aiden became known as the Dark Wanderer. As Zul and his allies pursued the Dark Wanderer, they subdued many of the Lords of Hell in combat. The two lesser evils, Duriel and Andariel, the prime evil Mephisto, as well as Diablo, thwarting yet another of the Primeval's plans to corrupt humanity. As well as Mephisto and Diablo, another Primeval had escaped the confines of his Soulstone, released by Diablo, the Lord of Destruction, Baal. While Zul and his allies had been busy fighting Mephisto and Diablo, Baal had travelled north. His final destination was to be the Worldstone. As humanity was linked to the Worldstone, its corruption would lead to humanity's as well. Zul and his allies, after defeating the other primes, raced towards Mount Arreat, which housed the giant stone, where they fought and defeated Baal, but too late. Baal's corruption had seeped into the Worldstone. The Archangel Tyrael arrived, who had been aiding the heroes and could see one chance of salvation: the destruction of the World Stone. As the stone was destroyed, it created a massive explosion, and Ariat Mountain became Ariat Crater. Deckard Cain, last descendant of the Horadrim and ally to the heroes, warns them what the World Stone's destruction might mean for Sanctuary. Rather than heed the old scholar's warnings, their mission complete, the heroes chose to disband. Cain appeared to be very understanding of the weary heroes needing rest, later remembering Zul favourably. I briefly travelled with a necromancer in the past. Through that experience, I have come to believe that the priests of Rathma can be powerful and trustworthy allies to have at one's side in these uncertain times. Zul returned to his fellow priests, his adventures seeing his skills and status rise from that of a novice to a master necromancer. Zul took on one student, Mendeln. 20 years later, Cain's doomsaying came to fruition. The World Stone had acted as a dampening field, making it difficult for the masses of the burning hells to invade. With it gone, the Lords of Hell, Asmodan and Belial, launched an invasion upon the world. The World Stone's destruction had one positive effect. As it had been used to dampen humanity's Nephilim power, new generations were seeing this power restored to them. Humanity had defenders, several of whom are in Heroes of the Storm. Zul did not make an appearance in Diablo III, which follows the Nephilim as they defy Belial and Asmodan's invasion. But his student did, setting out to do his bit to support the balance, with a clear admiration for his master.
2 decades ago, my mentor faced the forces of evil and emerged victorious. I cannot hope to surpass his achievements, but I will try to bring balance to the raging forces that threaten to tear the world asunder in these days. The spirits are restless near Caldeum. I must quiet them.
While out travelling the deserts of Caldeum, the Nephilim discovered a ruined building. Outside it stood Mendeln, with his skeletal allies, strange contraptions upon the ground.
You're a necromancer, aren't you? What brings you here?
Powerful spirits haunt these ruins. I was not strong enough to defeat them, but I was able to trap them. I fear the coven that invades the region will try to use the spirits for their nefarious purposes. But if you dare, you can try to put them to rest. Activate the totems to release the spirits, and be prepared to fight.
The Nephilim were able to put the spirits to rest just in time, as the nefarious coven of which Mendeln spoke arrived immediately after. With Mendeln at their side, the Nephilim vanquished the members of the coven. So, there you have it, the lore behind Zul, mainly looking at the priests of Rathma, their origins and culture. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, why not like, share and subscribe? Then I'll know you enjoyed it, and my inner balance can be restored. Of course, if you want to throw me into a state of chaotic inner turmoil, you can hit the dislike button. Next time, we'll be moving on to a couple of heroes from the StarCraft universe. Who would you like to see covered next? Until next time, I hope to see you in the Nexus.